This is really the worst nightmare for anyone. The family of a 14-year-old boy has reached a settlement after he fell to his death at a Florida amusement park nearly a year ago. Tyrese Sampson was on spring break when he slipped out of his seat on the 400-foot-tall Orlando freefall ride at Icon Park. CNN's Carlos Suarez joins us now live from Orlando. Carlos, horrible. What is the latest with this?
Well, Sampson's mother tells me that she promised her son that she would see this ride taken down. And as you can see behind me, parts of that ride now rest on the street outside of that amusement park where that teenager died. And as you can imagine, for the family, having come out here earlier this week to remember him, this was an incredibly difficult trip. Nekia Dodd making a first and possibly last visit to the amusement ride that killed her 14-year-old son, Tyrese Sampson. Workers began taking apart the freefall drop tower ride in Orlando as she watched.
This place was my son's last breath, last place on earth. I mean, last thought, last everything. He took his last everything on that ride.
Sampson was on a spring break trip last March when he fell from what the ride's operators say was the world's tallest drop tower ride at Icon Park. Nearly a year later, Dodd said the grief is still overwhelming.
I still talk to him. He's there every day. So he's there with me spiritually, just not physically. So.
An investigation by Florida's Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services determined Sampson slipped out of his seat because he wasn't properly secured. The report found operators made manual adjustments to 2 seats on the ride in order to accommodate, quote, larger people. According to investigators, the photo on the left shows the gap in Tyrese's seat was nearly 7.2 inches. The photo on the right shows the average gap for the unadjusted seats was 3.3 inches. The report found the, quote, misadjustments of the seat's sensor allowed for safety lights to turn on, which allowed the ride to start, even though it wasn't safe. Sampson weighed 383 pounds, according to the family, and was 100 pounds above the maximum weight for the ride, according to the ride's manual.
They had nothing for weight on a ride that was the most important thing because of the velocity of the ride. And they had nothing to warn Tyree.
Refused on other rides, why not this one? As an adult or the ride attendant, you should have made that call. His feelings would have been hurt, but he will still be here with me today.
The family's attorney said they've reached a settlement in its wrongful death lawsuit with the amusement park and the operators of the ride. A lawsuit against the manufacturer of the ride and the company that designed the seat is pending. And Florida's state legislature is considering a bill that would increase safety regulations for rides. The Tyrese Sampson Act would require any ride more than 100 feet tall to have seatbelts in addition to other restraints. It would also increase training standards for ride attendants and inspections. The attendant who strapped Sampson in the day he was killed had only been on the job 3 days and was considered a trainee, according to the state investigation. Dodd welcomes the changes, but wishes they'd come sooner.
A year later, is it easier? Is it just as difficult?
It's difficult because a year later, we're coming across birthdays and holidays and family functions, and we have a spot where there's no Tyree.
And so crews hope to have the entire ride taken down in time for the 1-year mark this time next week. The terms of the settlement were not disclosed, and Sampson's mother tells me she hopes to start a foundation in her son's honor. Dawn, as for the criminal investigation into this accident, we're told that is still ongoing, and the manufacturer of the ride, they declined to comment.
Carlos Suarez in Orlando this morning. Thank you, Carlos.